as Manchester City lose for a fourth game in a row across all competitions. There you see it. Away against Brighton, away against Sporting in the Champions League, Bournemouth in the Premier League, and then in the Carabao Cup away against Tottenham. 4 straight defeats. Something that has never happened to Pep Guardiola as a manager. Before we go big picture, let's start with the game. Craig, what happened to City in the second half?
Well, it was the Brighton show. I mean, they did make some changes, to be fair to them. Made one at half-time, then made another 3. For 35 minutes, it was a clinic. Apart from the fact it was only 1-0, but it was a clinic from Man City in terms of this Brighton team that are very good on the ball, couldn't get on the ball. And then they finished the half strongly, Brighton, which gave them a bit of momentum at half-time, and they came out and they continued that. Then they made the changes. And then we just saw all those flaws in Man City that we've seen in these games, where we know they've got some defensive problems, we know they've got some injury problems, but Brighton just continued to open them up and deservedly got back in front and deservedly won the game. Now, he did have experienced players on the bench, which we saw some of them coming on, and Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. Nathan Ake was on the bench and Manuel Akanji was on the bench, and Stevie and I were talking, they can't be fit, they can't be ready. There must be a bigger picture in terms of why these guys are not involved, because it's a long old season. But that's 10 goals in 4 games, and they did not deserve to win this game today. They did not. Brighton fully deserved the win.
You agree with that, Stevie?
Yeah, I mean, the second half, I think, would be the biggest worry, I think, if I'm Pep, is that physically, from a mental standpoint as well, they got absolutely nowhere near Brighton. You know, in the first half, Brighton, I think, were far too respectful. They sat off them. And if you sit off City, they'll pass the ball for fun. Now, fortunately for Brighton, City right now in the final third, and you know, gone are the days of 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Seems like it anyway. And in the second half, after the kick up the backside, all of a sudden, in the middle of the park, they just got outfought, outran. And Brighton, technically, are very, very good. And so all that put together, Man City had no answer for it. Gundogan and Kovacic, as good as he was in the first half, just went in the game. Ricardo Lewis, in the first half, looked as though he was playing centre midfield. You know, they had total dominance in the middle of the field, City. He couldn't leave his spot in the left-back position because Brighton was just all over them. So that would be a worry. Just from a pure physical point, they couldn't handle what Brighton were doing to them. So if I'm watching this, if I'm anybody else in the Premier League who's playing them shortly, you get in their face the way that Brighton did in the second half and get after them, well, they had no answer.
We talk about all these teams, if we just touch on Brighton quickly, that sell players, and that's problematic. This team sells players, and they recruit players as good, with promise, and if not, maybe sometimes better. I mean, I'm probably going to miss some out here, but they sold Cucurella. They sold Bissouma to Tottenham. They sold McAllister to Liverpool. They sold Caicedo to Chelsea. There are more. And they've gone out and they've replaced him. Ayari came in. He went off at half-time because he was booked. Baliba came on. He was excellent. Young Hinshelwood, the manager has talked about him. He's going to play for England. He can play full-back. He can play in midfield. Georgina Rutter comes in. From Leeds, João Pedro comes in. I think it was from Watford he came in from. Danny Welbeck has reinvigorated his career. You know, and so this is recruitment, this is coaching, this is just a belief in the process, the way this club is run. And every now and again they get tonked by somebody. You know, they try and play out from the back, they get caught out, and they get a heavy defeat. But they believe in what they're doing. And if we turn that back to City, we have an international break now coming up, which is probably going to be good for them in the sense that they need to have they need to check in.
Guardiola said it'd be good to clear their heads.
Yeah, clear their heads, get some fitness back from some of the players if they don't go away on international duty and come back injured. But then they have a game against Feyenoord in the Champions League, but that's squashed in between Tottenham and Liverpool. And they're already, as that graphic showed, 4 defeats on a row. Now, I talked about defensively. you know, the problems they've got there. But it's not just that. There is a heavy reliance at the moment on Erling Haaland in terms of scoring Premier League goals. They are not getting enough from the rest. Mateo Kovacic, who's the sitting midfielder now because Rodri is out for the season, is the top scorer with 3. And then you go down the list. It's only Doku and De Bruyne got 1. The rest of them have got a big fat 0.
How do you explain that? Because they're all good players, right?
Well, Gundogan's never been a big goal scorer. He had 1 big season. But when you think about it, De Bruyne's normally chipping in, Bernardo Silva's normally chipping in. Phil Foden's got nothing. Jack Grealish has had his injury problems. And Savinho, you know, maybe look at players that they've lost who were big game changers for them. And I'm thinking of one player in particular, although there's been more. You know, Raheem Sterling goes, blah, blah, blah. Riyad Mahrez. Riyad Mahrez became a player that was so important to this team. Whether he was on the bench or starting, he was a game changer with assists, but more importantly with big goals. At this moment in time, that's dried up. That graphic doesn't lie. Only 2 of them with 1 goal. Kovacic is having to play a defensive role now, more than he was when Rodri was around. So he's not going to be influence the game going forward. So the others are going to have to step up. We talked about it the same with Arsenal, who play tomorrow with Kai Havertz. Others are going to have to step up. And that's the difference with Liverpool, who we're going to get to. They seem to be sharing this load around a little bit more. There's not a big concern if somebody's not scoring goals. Now, maybe Erling Haaland will go out and get 45 goals again this year, and it's nothing to worry about. But while City are not defending well, and Haaland's only getting the odd goal like he did today, and the rest are not chipping in, that's a problem.
Give me the manager's perspective here. What do you do? Like, is it fixable first? Or are we looking at maybe, you know, we've never seen this before, 4 losses in a row for Pep Guardiola at the beginning of,
I think Pep,
you know what I'm going to say, the beginning of the end.
I think Pep will be delighted they're coming up to a break, because him and all his coaching staff are going to have a long week sitting down and try to figure this out. Yes, they've got some injuries, but it feels like something's coming to the end with this team. You know, I don't think I can remember the last time I saw a Man City team that didn't react to going behind.
Yeah.
Because although it was around the 85th minute when Brighton scored the second.
83rd, I think.
There was still 15 minutes to go. You got 9 minutes extra time.
And they had Kevin De Bruyne on the field. They had Bernardo Silva on the field.
And they really didn't have a response. We saw 1 half chance for Guardiola, but there was nothing. There was no response. It almost looked as though they had nothing left. I mean, we're not even at Christmas, and they look jaded. They look jaded by the end of the game.
And you know, so I think teams now are just, at this moment in time,
they're not scared anymore.
Correct. That sort
Can
of.
you get that
and
feel back?
although Brighton were a little bit in awe, as Stevie said in the first half, but we don't forget recently, Adama Traore has any sort of shooting boots on for Fulham, and they go to the Etihad and win. The game against Southampton at the Etihad was 1-0. It was close. It was not a blow-away. They lost against Tottenham, and that started this roll of 3 more losses. They're not at this moment in time, and they're all getting a little bit older. You know, Kevin De Bruyne has had his injury problems. You know, Bernardo Silva's been there a while. Ilkay Gundogan goes away, doesn't play brilliantly for Barcelona. Because of their financial problems, they allow him to go. He goes back there. He's very tidy. But is he going to get you 10 or 15 goals? Phil Foden's off colour. Jack Grealish had that great season, and then it sort of slipped away a little bit. And Jeremy Doku, fit or not fit, is a flash in the pan. And then Savinho's come in, you know, does some nice tricks now and again, but he's not playing for Girona now in La Liga. He's playing for Man City. You know, it's Champions League, it's the top of the Premier League, it's a fight every week, and he's going to have to up his game. And so there's a lot of stuff there for the other teams to be quite happy about, particularly Liverpool. But as we sit here now, I think most people would say, well, we're going to get a response from City. The international break will come and go, and they'll come out, they'll win 12 games in a row.
You don't believe that?
They've done it before.
Yeah.
I don't at this moment in time. I don't.
No.
I think there is so many little issues in their team at almost every end, and it's not just because Rodri's out. It's not. It's a big blow, but it's not just that.
There's so many questions.
Yeah.
We're questioning everything. The only person we're not questioning is the goalkeeper. After that, we're questioning.
He was busy
everything.
today. I mean, he could have shipped 3 or 4 in that second half. Yeah.
There are just so many questions about this team. And
Rodri wouldn't solve most of them, though?
no.
Really? It's that far off last year.
Listen, I think Rodri makes a difference. Of course he makes a difference, but he doesn't solve everything that's going on, certainly at the back. I mean, Rodri playing today wouldn't have been enough to save them in the second half from what was going on around them, because just nobody was there. And I said it last week after the defeat in the Champions League. At the end of the game, you saw them all looking into the sky and looking into space. They all looked as though they were thinking, what's going on? And it's carried on to this game against Brighton. Because again, at the end of the game, you look at Haaland. Haaland's, you can see the frustration in his face. He doesn't understand what's going on. And that's probably what most of them are thinking, what's going on,
If you're
including the manager.
I mean, you lose 4 against Sporting.
Right.
And that's a problem. And you come off the back of that, you lose another 2, could have been more, from a dominant position. That's a problem. You've also got the cloud that's hanging over them of the manager, who, is he staying or is he going? And nobody knows yet. There's no, unless I've missed something.
Do you think that's dragging this team down?
I don't think it's dragging the team down, but I don't think it helps when you're trying to look forward at this moment in time. And I don't know whether subconsciously 1 or 2 players. I don't think so.
Just a lot of,
But it's just
little problems beginning to add up.
But it's not been noised before. Guardiola was there for the long term. He signed a new contract before. There's always been a project. You know, superstars have come and gone. They've come and gone. Fernandinho, Vincent Kompany, David Silva. They've come and gone, and they've churned out more with the big signings and with the likes of Phil Foden and 1 or 2 others. Rico Lewis, Oscar Bob, obviously a youngster who's played, coming through and playing. But if this continues, and these players like De Bruyne and 1 or 2 others are at the wrong end of the career, and this manager isn't committing to a longer term,